I think there's an awful lot to offer in relationships with the Data Lab, not just with the Torch service we're going to focus on today, but we think that the Torch service is particularly critical to the tourism sector, because I know from experience both at the Data Lab but also within tourism that it's still difficult to get started with data in tourism, or at least to take that step beyond the spreadsheets. And I think that's why the Torch service is one that we really want to promote. Just by way of introduction on this, I was having conversations with the Torch team yesterday, and we already know of a lot of tourism businesses or travel tech companies that are starting to engage with them. So it's a really exciting time. Data is so important for any business, especially tourism ones. And I always talk about this from my time actually at Nesta. If you're using data in decision making, all the evidence says it makes you more productive, it makes you more profitable, and it makes you more innovative. So I don't want to spend too much more time talking. I'm going to hand over to Rhona. Just another quick reminder: just turn your microphone on mute, because I'm getting a little bit of echo, so someone might have it on. If you want to, turn your camera off as well. And I'm going to now hand over to Rhona from the Torch team.
Great, thank you very much, Josh. I'll just share my screen now. Hopefully, if you could just confirm, Josh, that you're seeing the first slide of the presentation.
I can see it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the kind introduction, and our thanks from the Data Lab to Josh and Leslie for arranging this event. What I'm going to do today is just give you a very brief introduction to the Data Lab. Josh has said a little, and an introduction to the Torch service, and then we'll move on to the core content of what we're talking about today. So the Data Lab's one of Scotland's innovation centres. We're the Innovation Centre for Data and AI. We're funded by the Scottish Government through the Scottish Funding Council, and really at the heart of what we do is that we believe Scotland can lead the world to a future where data powers both scientific progress, economic prosperity and social good. And what we do is we act as a catalyst, using our expertise and our network and our funding to change how Scotland and the world looks and innovates with data. What I would encourage you all to do is please look at our website, the datalab.com, and you'll find much more information about all the things that we do. We primarily work in three main pillars. So we support collaborative partnerships, turning sort of specialist expertise in both academic and commercial organisations into real world innovation. Josh mentioned the skills side. We help Scotland's workforce build industry ready skills so that they can start using data and AI far more effectively and tackle today's and tomorrow's challenges. And through our community and our events and all the different things that we do with organisations in Scotland and individuals, we champion and cultivate that vibrant data community that's out there already and building all the time. We want to help it flourish and make an impact within the country. The Torch service is relatively new in the Data Lab. We sit under the Support to Innovate pillar, and we were set up really in response to the challenges we saw organisations were facing, especially SMEs, to get started or do more with their data. The promise of doing things with data science and maybe artificial intelligence, machine learning was getting further away rather than closer to many businesses, because they didn't have the core foundations in place solidly enough to really start on that longer data journey. We're coming up to the end of our first year. We launched just in time for COVID, which was perfect timing, and the Torch service has been funded through Scottish Enterprise. They allow us to work the way we do, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. We're a small, experienced team, keen to use our knowledge and network to help the clients that we work with in the Torch service. Myself, Ian, Marjorie and Lauren are all on the call today. Some of you may know Sarah. She's on annual leave today, but she's got quite a lot of involvement in the tourism sector through another job that she does outside the Data Lab. So we're all here hopefully to answer your questions and take you through the content that we've got today. And as Josh said, please put things into chat as we go along, and if it makes sense to answer it at the time, then we will do. Otherwise, we'll all come on at the end and have a good conversation and answer all the questions that we can. In terms of how Torch works, what we really try and do is offer a flexible, holistic service where we look at the business outcomes that an individual client businesses are looking for, and look across the domains of people, process, data and technology, and see how they need to interact and work together within that organisation. We tailor what we do to the client's needs. I said we were funded by Scottish Enterprise. What we are is a paid for service for private sector organisations, but we offer discounts on our day rates based on the age and stage of the organisations we're working with. And we have cooperated with Scottish Enterprise. They've kindly been very flexible in allowing us to offer additional discounts to organisations who've been impacted by the current very challenging circumstances. So that's been recognised, and we have some of that flexibility. In terms of how we work, as I say, we set out to focus on the business outcome and set out a roadmap for what you need to do. We then will work with you as a sort of neutral, critical friend, guiding you through those options across the 4 domains and to find the most suitable solution for your particular circumstances. And we're supported in that through our supplier network. So what we aim to do is help shape up a piece of work with you and then introduce you to partners within our supplier network who can help you take that work forward. So in terms of the benefits that we see this approach brings, it's really about allowing you to move more quickly, to get to value much more early. It's about minimising the risk to your organisation by helping you understand the choices that are available to you and helping you make the choice that's right for your organisation. We will always act in a neutral way. We have no bias towards one technology or the other or one particular partner. We will always give you multiple options and help you see what those options mean for your organisations and what choices you can take. And we look to, in the main, deploy proven solutions where there are other options in the data lab that work more at the innovative end. We're probably at the basic, starting point for companies who want to get started with data. And as I said, we leverage our network of organisations in the data lab and the Scottish ecosystem to help us do that. We've done about 15 or so projects already across multiple sectors. As Josh mentioned, 1 or 2 in the travel sector that we're working with just now, travel and hospitality. We've done a pet food manufacturer, a housing association, retailers, PR and comms company. We've got case studies on our website now for Sea Spider, Grand Bequest and Healthy Nibbles, who are a high value spirit pricing company, a historic built environment and restoration company, and a nutrition and wellbeing. And the supplier network, I mentioned, we now have nearly 50 Scotland-based suppliers on the network, from very large to very small, even individuals. I think 1 or 2 of them are maybe on the call today, and across the board, we're always looking for expertise and happy to welcome more into that supplier network. So moving on to the meat of the conversation today, if you want to just drop into chat whether you're currently using spreadsheets or not to manage your business data, just a yes or no or a thumbs up, then it'd be good. My colleagues will be keeping an eye on that as we go through. We'll have a follow-up poll at the end just to see where we are. So in terms of when we're talking about spreadsheets, we're absolutely not saying, Excel is all bad, or Excel and the many clones of Excel that are out there is all bad, and it's going to be replaced at some point soon. That's absolutely not the case. It's in use in so many different ways, in so many different situations and different organisations across the whole globe, and for a reason. It is it's on a lot of people's devices already because they have Microsoft Office. It is flexible, has a lot of functionality and capability within it. So it becomes a bit like the de facto choice, where it seems like there's not another option. within your organisation, oh well, we can do something with Excel. But the sort of caution that needs to be taken with that is it is a very powerful tool when it's used appropriately. You just need to always think at the back of your mind, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And there have been many recent examples where the use of Excel as a quick solution has led to some serious problems. Things like the COVID test reporting errors in England that were caused by a size limitation in Excel, where thousands of test results were not recorded, and that took quite a few weeks to discover that that was the reason for it. The new Children's Hospital in Edinburgh, where a wrong parameter on the airflow in the operating theatres was in a spreadsheet at least 2 years before any building work started, but it wasn't discovered until the hospital was just about ready to open. So, you know, some of the cons around use of spreadsheet. Once the data's in there, it's hard to find it. It's not a great user interface. It's very easy to make errors in terms of the data and the data quality within spreadsheets. Spreadsheets try and help sometimes by changing the format of the data depending how you're putting it in, and it's often not easy to spot by eye that has happened. They're files that work great when you're working on your own, but they're not great for collaboration. You can end up with multiple versions that are then hard to consolidate as you go through. It prevents, you know, quick and easy decision making, because often it's not clear. There are people who have, you know, very, very complicated spreadsheets, but they're maybe the only people who can understand them. And if they leave an organisation, it can leave a big gap and a big problem. They're also quite vulnerable to fraud. It's easy for people to go in and make changes within a spreadsheet without it being visible to people until it's too late. We have got a blog up on our website that gives a little bit more detail on this, and there's a link that's included in the slide here, and these will be shared afterwards, but maybe one of my colleagues can drop a link into the chat from our website as we go through. And just to sort of summarise on that, this is a quote from a fairly recent Forbes magazine piece that's saying, you know, spreadsheets change the world. They revolutionised how business is done, and industries everywhere run on them. And this is, you know, this article is one of many that highlight the issues with spreadsheet. But the caveat is that they are rife with errors. The estimate of 88% is the most common one that I've seen in all the articles that I've looked at, and half of those cause defects, and that has a real cost for businesses. You know, a couple of classic examples: the JP Morgan London whale, which cost them $6.5 billion, was caused by incorrect use of a formula in a spreadsheet. So that they lost $6 billion because of the errors, but they also got fined another $500 million for using spreadsheets for such a critical transaction. A power company, TransAlta, lost $24 million because they bought more hedge contracts for their utility than they should have done due to a cut and paste error. So they're very extreme ones, but you can find many similar examples like that. So what then are the alternatives, and what are the solutions to not using spreadsheets when it's not appropriate? And what we'll do is we'll look at the areas of data management, upskilling and data, pre-built solutions and low-code solutions in a little bit more detail. Those options are really all facilitated by the items we have in the how column there. So moving to the cloud-based technology is now so affordable, flexible, and it's improving and continuously growing all the time and very, very quickly. There are new cloud services, new cloud platforms, new applications that are out there for use, covering every facet of life, and we've seen that that's exploded even more as people have been more and more online over the last year, particularly in the work environment, and using cloud technology to help businesses keep running and help businesses to grow and change as they've had to, as circumstances have changed. Automating the data capture, so no more sort of manual, using tools of older style data processes where you are writing things down or capturing it in a spreadsheet and then manually entering it into another system. There are simple examples out there of, you know, checking in with QR codes, finding out more information about an event or a place that you're at by getting messaging on your mobile devices, using sensors. All of those things improve the quality and the efficiency of gathering the data that you need to run your particular business processes. And the final thing to think about is consider how the different components you use to run your business play well together. Now, with open standards and the ability to offer a smooth customer experience, it's important to understand how these components link together, and all the technology that's now becoming available on the cloud through using those open standards is becoming much easier to share the data where needs be between these different solutions. So some of the challenges of the past have now definitely been solved, and there's opportunities there to do things differently. So moving on to the first one, which is the data management side. This can be done whether you're using spreadsheets or other technologies. A lot of it is how you manage your data. It's really important. Know what you have, why you have it, how you use it, and treat it well. You know, it's an important asset for your business. A common understanding of the data elements across your business, some sort of business dictionary, so that everyone in your business knows what the data elements are and why they're used. And there are some technologies out there to help you with doing this, but actually it's as much about applying some good practice, some good communication and collaboration within your business or within your wider supply chain. So more about people than the technology side in this case. And it is something that you don't just do once. It's an ongoing process. So make sure that you're keeping that knowledge up to date. It's not a once and done activity. It should become embedded as part of your day-to-day. So it's you know, how you look at things like data quality and accuracy, and obviously everything you do, making sure that it's done securely and ethically, and that data privacy, particularly when you're dealing with individuals and consumers, that it complies with all the necessary legislation like GDPR. Now, if you consider, you know, another very recent example that for me is a very clear data quality issue and reflective of how data is captured, but errors with it were not spotted. So there was I think just a couple of weeks ago, a man from Liverpool was offered his COVID jab because his BMI was recorded in a system as 28,000. Now, given that obesity is usually considered between 20 and 30, it was discovered that it was because his height of 6'2" had been entered into a field where it was centimetres that were expected. So he was entered as 6.2 centimetres tall. So this is, you know, clearly a data quality issue, and a value had been entered but not in the right units. And it's really difficult for people to spot that. Some people think, well, that should be really obvious. Well, actually, for me, this is a data quality thing that you want your system to be flagging up to you that this is an entirely, you know, inappropriate value, and the error is spotted much more quickly than it was in this case when the gentleman was invited to get his vaccination. The second area is around upskilling in data, and data literacy, as we talk about it, is the ability to read and work and analyse and communicate with data, and it essentially empowers workers to ask the right questions of data and machines, build knowledge, make decisions, and, you know, communicate meaning to others through the use of data. And this is something that does require knowledge and training, and it can take a bit of time to get on board, but it is something that we're seeing very clearly is going to be critical to the vast majority of jobs going forward. And as a consequence of that, there is significant support coming from the government and other sources for building those skills that are really needed now, but will definitely be needed even more in the future. There's already gaps identified where we're trying to get more school pupils and students and so forth into this area, because there's a skill shortage already in place. Just to highlight, linked on here, and there's much more information on our website, that there has been specific funding made available for SMEs by the Scottish Government that's available through the Data Skills for Work programme, and there's a closing date on that of Monday the 8th of March. So if you think you've got people in your organisation that would benefit from upskilling in data, then please do have a look at that. And in terms of the other options that I've called out here are some of these online platforms like Coursera and edX and LinkedIn, the Institute of Marketing. They offer a really wide range of courses. A lot of them are free, some are paid for. You can do them in a sort of class scenario, although very little obviously going on face-to-face at the moment. And you can do them kind of self-paced. And a number of different organisations also set out a programme of courses that can take you through as you build up your knowledge and experience and help your knowledge grow. So there's lots out there, definitely worth having a look at. And moving on to perhaps the more practical solutions to using something different from spreadsheets is pre-built or packaged solutions. There are many options out there. The ones I've highlighted is not an exhaustive list at all. Some are specific to particular industries or sectors. Some are much more common business functionality that you'll find in a lot of businesses: finance, HR, product management, customer management, those types of things. There are things like Odoo, Microsoft Business Central, Salesforce that offer Xero to an extent, will offer a suite of solutions, and you pick the ones and the bits of the ones that you maybe want to work with that match your requirements. There are some more sector specific, as I was saying, like Appointed, Cloudbeds, Shopify, those types of ones. And there are different options for different organisation sizes. Some of these are maybe been seen in the past as only accessible to the very large organisations, but that's one of the great benefits of the cloud options now, is that you really have options for paying for what you use. You do need to understand what it is that you're using, but there are different license options out there for different organisations. And the big benefit of taking, starting to use packages like these is it can get you up and running very, very quickly from your starting point. And both package solutions and the low code that I'll come on to in a moment handle things like multi-language, multi-currency and so forth very easily. There's a lot of ease of integration. And some of the larger platforms as well, like the Salesforce, there's a huge community of people building applications that they'll build for their business and then make available on the app stores for these different platforms. So you very often do not start from scratch ever. It's about taking something that's there and adapting it so that it works in your circumstances. And taking that a little bit further is the low code platforms, where really they're opening up the capability to build applications beyond the software engineers and into what they would call citizen developers. So coupling these with the use of the cloud, where you pay for what you use, they really offer opportunities for organisations of all sizes. It's about finding quick and easy ways to automate and improve your existing business process, but not building large solutions at all. So that the four I've called out here, I understand there might be some changes with Google App Maker coming up fairly soon, but I've included them here because they are a player in this space. They support your ability to automate your business processes, centralise that data capture. They are easy to use, both from the applications you built have an easy to use and accessible user interface, but also from the building. It's much more about configuration than coding, and that lean sort of agile nature of building those allows you to do an awful lot with a very small budget available to you. It allows you to change how you work as an organisation. And there have been some estimates that it's kind of 10 times faster to build apps this way than the traditional way. If you think also about the time that you spent on your current processes when you're manually maybe entering data, moving it, finding things, the time saved from having those common business processes and the data centralised around them. And just to call out a couple of examples that have been done quite recently using low code, is there was a school principal in Tacoma in the US who had no IT experience at all, and wanted to do something much better in terms of how they were understanding the reading assessments that were being used on the children within her school. And she built a fairly simple app based on SharePoint to begin with, but changed it to Power Platform that allowed the teachers to enter the information very easily on devices in terms of the reading assessments. They were then able to analyse and visualise those reading assessments across the board. She built it for her school, and it proved so popular that it was very quickly rolled out across all the schools in her school district at a very low cost to the organisations involved. The National Trust in England is using Power Platform and Power Apps that they've built to capture data, using apps on people's own mobile devices in a large number of their properties in terms of capturing information around the restoration needs, around the visitors, things like that, and moving away from having localised spreadsheets that got shared. Everybody's using a central store of that information, and there's loads of case studies out there. I've included a link just for that particular platform, but there are loads for all the others as well. Some of the case studies focus on the larger companies, but the nature of the cloud software is that functionality is available to all companies, and that means all the benefits are available to them as well. So that's kind of where we've got to with the types of solutions. If we maybe just finish up before moving to questions on a couple of what are the other things that you can do once you maybe have your data organised and more centrally available to you. So if you think about how you might want to understand what's happening in your business using insights and reporting, when it's disparate and spread out in different data stores, it can be really hard to answer the types of questions that, what happened, why did it happen? Being able to move from the point where you're looking back and trying to see what has happened and work out what might happen in the future, allowing you to support decision making. So it's about being able to capture the relevant data you need in a consistent and timely manner, and moving to some of the solutions that we've talked about will enable that much more easier. Having that data then accessible across your business, so that once it's captured, people can go in using those tools and platforms to start looking at maybe other ways you could use your information to identify new opportunities and so forth. And the final one I just wanted to highlight was around the use of data for customer and marketing, that life cycle of customers that you want to engage with, to bringing them on board, retaining them, growing your relationship with them, understanding what it is that they want, being able to signpost them to the right product for them, managing that loyalty and retention, even being able to work out what the lifetime value of a customer might be to you, being able to see what the customers are interested in, what are their other actions that they are taking. So maybe if somebody's coming to your particular event or location, what else have they been doing recently that you could tie up with, and being able to give them basically a personalised customer experience. And that starting point of managing your data enables you to move on and really start doing some of these things. And my colleagues Margie and Ian, I know, have a lot of experience and background in this, so happy to take questions here. So what I'd like to do now is I'll stop presenting, we'll come on and pick up on some of the questions, and then we can finish off with a final poll and some closing remarks. Let me just do that. Here.
Thanks so much, Rhona. That was a great presentation.
No problem.
We've hopefully gained some questions going into the chat, so do have a think. Is it okay if I ask maybe the first one? Just to,
yeah, of course, please do.
Yeah, so the first one, I know a lot of tourism businesses in particular are struggling a bit at the moment, and you mentioned at the moment that there's discounts and ways that you can work with some of these smaller independent businesses. Can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the discounts that we can offer through our funding with Scottish Enterprises, we do it based on the age and size of the organisation. So we would offer a 70% discount for a larger medium organisation, maybe a 30% discount, so they pay 70% of the rate for a larger organisation, right down to startups where the maximum discount that we can give is 70%. So it's 30% of our day rate is what we do. I don't want to go into too much detail, because we do very much do it on a case by case basis, because what we want to do is be as responsive as we can to clients' individual circumstances. And as I mentioned in the presentation, we've got a bit more flexibility through our funding to do that in recognition of the circumstances that are there just now.
That's great. We've got a question coming from Cassie. Cassie, you're very welcome to ask it directly if you'd like, and just to go off mute.
Oh yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you so much, Rhona. That was absolutely brilliant. My question is, I've got a business in the travel and tourism sector representing Scottish attractions, things to do, and I provide a booking software for B&Bs, hotels, glamping businesses. So I've got quite a lot of, I represent a lot of them, and I've got a lot of data that I hold within our PMS, and it's just working how I'm really interested in innovation and how that might be able to help me running my small business. I'm just about to take on 2 Kickstarters, and I've got an intern, Joy, who's on this call at the moment. So it would be great to be able to work with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think my colleague Lauren Spark is our development lead for Torch. So Lauren would be the first point of contact, and it'd be great just to have a conversation. How we would typically work with an organisation is Lauren will have an initial conversation, because obviously we have Torch, but we have other support available through the wider data lab that may also be of interest. So Lauren will help you, talk through all of that with you, and essentially we try and then work out what the best help we can offer you at that point in time. It does sound like you're in a place where there are things that Torch could help you with in terms of how could you use that data that you do have more effectively. And I don't want to preempt things without having a more detailed conversation, but yeah, that's exactly the type of situation. Some of the organisations we've worked with already on Torch are aware they've built up they've maybe got a solution where they've built some data up in, but they're at a stage now. How do we take it forward? How do we maybe make sure we future-proof it a little bit better? And that's exactly the type of conversations that we would typically be having with companies. So yeah, please reach out to Lauren, and we can set something up very soon.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Cassie, if you don't, it should be in the chat. I can follow up through Leslie if you don't have it already, but we'll get a conversation ends.
Yeah, I'll email you straight afterwards. So, okay, thanks.
Well, that's a great start. I know Dawn Ann McKenney has a question as well, which has come through. Dawn, would you like to ask it directly?
Yeah, sure. Rhona, hi. Great
to
see you
Donna.
again. Yeah, for me, so I'm like basically sole director and owner of my own kind of data analytics business, but I've been predominantly working in the sort of sports sector, the leisure sector, with leisure operators in Scotland across the public sector. And predominantly a lot of them use Excel at the moment, but for me, if there's funding being released to upskill, then for me I would like to know more about what kind of courses are available for like cloud-based analytics, because if I can find out more, then what it does is allows the customers that I work with to say, look, there are other options that are safer, securer, data's more accessible, all the things you've been talking about today. So it's just if we could get any signposting or any information on that, would be ideal.
The links that the ones I called out on the upskilling stage in terms of edX, LinkedIn, and so forth, what you find is there's a mix on there of courses from academic institutions, but actually also from the software vendors. So Microsoft, for example, I know publish their courses on both edX and on LinkedIn, and a lot of them are free. So, and what I'm using Microsoft as an example because I know them better. It's not that there are, you know, there are other options out there, but they have as well. They'll signpost what would be a good suite of courses to do. So depending on your level of knowledge to start off with. So some are a, you know, basic introduction, some are maybe, and then move on to a bit more advanced as you get more experience. But using things like Power BI and so forth, there's some. I've actually done a few of those courses myself, going back a few years when they started coming out. So I know it's difficult because, you know, finding time for training when you're busy running your business, but also the cost of it. So I very much say start with the free options and have a look. And I'll put a little you know, sort of plug in for another side of the data lab in this, as well as the data skills for work and so on that I've mentioned. We have a number of online courses that we funded ourselves through the data lab in different industry sectors. Again, that's on our website. And in amongst that is an overall kind of introduction to driving value for data, which I know you did yourself a few months ago, Donna, as an example. That's less specific on doing analytics, a bit more of a broader introduction, and that again is available for free on the Future Learn platform and can be done, you know, self-paced. And so on. So all of those links we can share with people after the call. They're all there. They're all also there on our website. But that would be the place to start. And if you're looking for specific help with what would be the best one, you know, please just get in touch and we can try and help you with that.
No, that would be great. With regard to sourcing this funding, where does the applicant? You know, I haven't actually looked at your link on your website yet. But who does the funding application go to?
So the data skills for work piece is part of the Edinburgh, the wider DDI programme in Edinburgh and Lothians, but this particular one with additional funding for the Scottish, through the Scottish Government, is to open that skills credit piece up to any company in Scotland. Okay. So it's essentially making what was available for the last few months in Edinburgh and Lothians available to a company anywhere in Scotland, and they're targeting certain groups of learners, so women, returners, people whose jobs are maybe at risk due to automation or due to the pandemic in terms of jobs disappearing, and you essentially get a credit that allows you to pay, do paid for courses, and there are a number of providers that are linked up with that programme as well that show the range of courses that are available.
Okay,
so,
great. So
the application process is quite simple, so I'd say that would be where to start. Have a look at the link. I think I see Ian has dropped that into the chat as well. So please have a look at that.
Perfect, Rhona. Thanks so much. That's great.
No problem.
Yeah, just to reiterate, that's a really good program, the Data Skills for Work one, and especially designed for a lot of people who in tourism and hospitality at the moment who will have potentially been made redundant. So it's a really good scheme. Please do put your questions into the chat. I have another one for you all at Torch, which is, you've talked a bit about some of the common problems, but I know the Torch has been around for a bit of time now. What are the key sort of things that you are seeing when they reach you at Torch? What sort of typical problems or things that people could start to think about now before they even reach out?
Ooh, that's quite a hard one, and my colleagues will maybe jump in with things that I'm not thinking of, because we've worked with such a range of clients. It's actually quite hard to say what is a typical engagement. It tends to be that people are aware of what they want to do but aren't quite sure how. If I can be very, very general, that's how I would summarise it. So, but we've had some of those have been quite early startups who have an idea but maybe don't have the technical or data knowledge in their small team. Small team can be a person or two people, but small team, how can they get it? And we tend to work with them to help increase their knowledge and understanding of the areas they should be looking at. Sometimes we can help you with those areas, but often what we'll do is signpost them, as we have just done with the skills piece. That's similar to the advice that we give to a lot of organisations. If you're either looking to scale up the people in your team, here's the type of skills that they should look for, or if you're wanting to recruit them, here's how you might recruit them and where you can recruit them from, or what are the different options available. Maybe you want to partner with somebody to begin with and help do a project and bring the knowledge on board that way over a much longer period of time. So in terms of the specific projects, I think there's some common themes that we're recognising working with medium and smaller organisations, is people just having the time to invest in doing the project. It's not that people don't want to solve the problems they've got, they're just working really, really hard, keeping the businesses going and doing what they're doing just now. But some of what we can help them with will give them more time back, because it is about doing things more efficiently and better. But we do recognise, and that's why we try and be very flexible with the projects we do and how we work with the clients, is they have limited time, but we try and make sure that the time we do spend them, we get maximum value out of it, maybe in understanding what their strategy and what really their ideas are, and then try and reflect that back to them with the solutions that we would recommend they investigate. I don't know if Ian or Marjorie would like to add anything further on that.
Rhona, I was just going to pitch in quickly to say, I think from what I've seen, and I've just been a couple of months with Data Lab, but it's very much that organisations have built their own solutions which have served them really well, but are maybe about 4 or 5 years old, which doesn't sound very old. But actually, the step change in some of the technologies means that they could do that in quite a different way now. And that in terms of the amount of data that they might want to take out of their old world and into their new world, if you like, is still of a manageable scale. That this period of time has given people an opportunity to reflect and say, maybe I need to adopt something newer and more modern in terms of technology to address a lot more challenges that the businesses are now presented with. So I think it's realising what change there's been in the industry, and they've just not had time perhaps to see that happening and take advantage of it. So it's almost a kind of checkpoint and reflect and look forward. It's very much the theme that people have been wanting to explore with us.
I think the other point I would
Marjorie.
make.
Oh, sorry.
The other point I would make is these SMEs and startups that I've been working with tend to have a good idea. So what they've valued is the validation. It's building confidence that this actually does make sense. And I think one of the main benefits from Torch is we're not trying to sell anything beyond the core service. So when you're a startup founder or a small business, engaging with the supply side can be quite intimidating. It can be quite time consuming, but it can certainly be quite intimidating. It can cost a lot of money. So I think there's something around that validation. Yes, your idea is sensible. You might want to tweak it this way, that way, or the other way. And we will help you then shape that up and move forward.
Yeah, thanks so much. Pauline, I've seen you just put a note around some of the needs that you have. Would you want to just share some of the things you're doing and maybe get some initial ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, we're applying for charity status for Hunterston Castle, which is based in North Ayrshire. And we will need data management for our donors. We also run a very small retail side of the business, and I use Excel. I would much rather use tech to manage our people systems, but that's where we're coming from.
So a big moment of change for Hunterston at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think being charity, when I was saying there are different license options and so forth available, there are definitely options for third sector and charity organisations where some tech providers offer it very low, even lower cost. Some offer free versions depending on what your requirements are that are specifically for charity. So I think it would be a case of looking at what your needs were. Essentially, what we do with Torch, as Ian was saying, sometimes it's looking at what your needs are and finding the match, or if you have ideas already, helping you validate those ideas, and then pointing you to what the different options for you are there. So if that's of interest, please get in touch with Lauren.
Yeah, that's we need to know where to start, and I'd rather have everything in place as we start so that we can tweak it later. But as I said, I've never learnt Excel, and I can't get to grips with it. So I would much rather use technology than Excel. Yeah. Thank you. That would be great.
No problem.
I mean, Pauline, I think your example, both what you're trying to do now, but also your example of Excel is something that's shared. Crikey, I think I've learned Excel 3 or 4 times and still haven't fully learned it, if you know what I mean. And so I think that's a really interesting opportunity. I have 2 questions, but I don't want to sort of crowd out everyone else's. So do put them into the chat. I want to pick up on something that you said, Marjorie, around developments over the last 5 years. And one of the things that I wanted to ask is almost, what are the big changes that you've seen recently that you think people, or any additional from what we've heard already, that you think people could really learn from?
Yes, I think it's, I mean, the interesting thing about the travel trade is that, it's very much a global business, and it's very much that you've got different parts of the world who've been accelerating and taking on and embracing some of these technologies. So for travel in particular, when you start to look at things like people offering virtual tours, people wanting to really personalize and make it very experience-based. So, people aren't looking to just go buy a complete solution, they're wanting everything very much personalized. And that tends to mean that you perhaps need a lot more collaboration between specialist and niche suppliers. So the idea that people come to one place and just get everything is perhaps, it's become less what people are looking for, and that people who are choosing to travel and able to travel are looking to get much more personalization. And I think that opens up the need for everyone in the trade to know what they're specially doing, but also to look at those collaborations and partnerships. And when you think of the challenges inside your own organisation of just moving the data, whether you're using spreadsheets and moving the data between people in your own organisation, when you give yourself the challenge of more collaboration with other organisations and more real-time working with them to shape solutions and to give people an end-to-end experience, you immediately hit that barrier of, if it's all sitting inside your own spreadsheets, it's really, really hard to quickly build those relationships and pass that information around. So that would be one of the examples I think that's particularly important. And then obviously you've got some of the directions with wearable technology, QR codes, even just the challenges of COVID requiring you to track people and know exactly where they've been. So this idea of, once somebody's booked with you, you have that ongoing and very much, real-time experience, and that's all generating data of its own, which is much more dynamic than the kind of things we would typically put in spreadsheets. So that's a couple of examples.
That's a great example. And I think, when I think about the tourism sector or the hospitality sector at the moment, a lot of what I think about is, I already mentioned that technology adoption has gone up in the sector because of the need for track and trace and various things like that. And when I was chatting to a colleague of mine, Peter Syme, he was saying how track and trace actually helps you potentially, as long as you're GDPR compliant and everything, understand a lot more about where your customer base is and help them come back and enjoy what you've got to offer more. And I envisage the way I've seen sort of tourism businesses work with spreadsheets has often been, you don't get that single point of a customer, you don't get any customer information. And I think one thing that will certainly be of interest will be things like track and trace, how that feeds into CRM, how that feeds into potential marketing opportunities, how does that then go into, like Pauline was saying, into future donors or members and various things like that. So that's something that I think could be a big part of work within tourism. So I've got a couple of minutes left, and I just wanted to, Rhona, do you have any sort of final thoughts or points or anything you want to reiterate to the audience?
I mean, I think what I'll do is I've just got a couple of final slides. We were going to do a poll around has your mind been changed? But I think we'll skip that just in the interest of time. But let me just quickly share my slides again, and I will go to that. So as I say, please do keep in touch with us. But I think in summary for today, we've talked about in the questions, just touched on some of the areas where we know that there are technology options out there that can really help businesses do things better, more securely, and enable you to work much more flexibly and collaboratively. And as Margie was saying in our final point there, that collaboration, bringing maybe lots of different destinations in the same geographical area together, so that from a consumer's perspective, they can access all of those directly from their phone. Working together in those ways. Technology is there now to enable that. It's just about how you get onto that and start using it. So I think that's the key point for me. As I say, all the sort of touch points are there. I know they've been shared in the chat as well. And I think the final thing from us is we're just going to give a very quick view of the types of things, other areas that the Data Lab cover. So, if you have any interest at all, please just go to our website or get in touch, and we'll delighted to try and help you in whichever way that we can.
Thanks so much, Rhona. Thanks so much to the whole Data Lab and Torch team for today. I'm obviously very biased, having worked there and enjoyed my experience immensely, but I know how high quality the work is. And I think just to reiterate the key point, which is I think coming out of this, which is often a lot of tourism, travel, or other hospitality businesses, often quite time poor. You're maybe a small team. You're often very focused on just providing wonderful customer experience, rightly so. And I think with the technologies that Marjorie, you were talking about, as they're changing and adapting over time, and not wanting to be left behind, wanting to be able to save yourself time, I think it does require some shepherding and some guidance and some support to help make the decisions that are going to be long-lasting and really beneficial. And you can spend an awful lot of time getting lost in a maze, not knowing the types of things that you need. Is this something? So I really am supportive, and I think the Torch service is providing something that is particularly useful for this sector. So I just want to thank you again for everyone who's been here. We're going to share the recording to everyone who registered afterwards. I would definitely recommend getting in touch with Lauren, who has shared her email several times in the chat, because I think having that early conversation is going to be really, really important. So I don't want to keep anyone any longer. Thank you so much, Rhona, for your talk, and Ian, Marjorie, and Lauren from Torch for everything that you're doing. And just to end on, please, and to Leslie, of course, who has organised and arranged everything going on today. Please do get in touch with Lauren if this is something you're interested in. Just have that early conversation. So thank you ever so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Great. Thanks all.
Thanks very much.